The following is a paid commercial program on 94.3 WSC. The views expressed by the host of this program do not necessarily reflect the views of iHeartMedia, 94.3 WSC, its advertisers, sponsors, or management. This is The Real Estate Show with Rick Willis, a show about home sales, mortgage issues, investing, and everything about the American dream.
And that means a lot as someone who enjoys radio and really enjoys your program.
And now The Real Estate Show with Rick Willis on 94.3 WSC.
Hello, Charleston. Welcome to the Rick Willis Real Estate Show. We talk about buying, selling, investing, financing, real estate here. And that could be either a home to live in, an investment property, commercial property, vacant land, whatever you want to talk about, you let me know and we'll put it on the agenda. Now, as is customary in the first portion of the program, I talk to you about the status of the market. And the status of the market is best illustrated by telling you how many active residential listings there are. As of this morning, when we're recording this show, we have a little over 5,200 active residential listings. Now that number has steadily grown since the end of the pandemic, but it's been very stable here for the last several months, meaning that the number of sales and the number of new listings coming on the market are in pretty much balance. Now, that being said, it's a good time to buy. You see, there's been times in the past when there's very little inventory and property values are going up tremendously and even being bid up by multiple offers. Now we're back to pretty close to what you would call a normal market. Normal market meaning neither the buyer nor the seller has an unfair advantage over the other, based strictly on the number of active properties for sale. So it does vary, of course, based on type of property, price range, and geographical location of where you want to be. There still are certain segments of the Charleston market where when a property comes on the market, if it's priced close to right, it's sold very quickly. And there's other parts of the Charleston area where the answer is not so much. Having said that, if you are looking to sell your property, you've got to deal with exactly where your property is located and what kind of property you have. You don't have any control over where you locate your property because you've already got it. Now, quick story for you. As of this morning, I have a transaction that will be closing where the buyer of the property heard my radio show about 2 months ago. He reached out to me, we had a conversation, and based on that conversation, which had a pretty tight criteria of what he wanted, we started sending him listings. He screened those listings on his own, wanted to do a drive-by from the outside, let us know which ones he wanted to see the insides of, and I'm pleased to say that we negotiated a contract for him that had him paying zero cash out of his pocket. And when I say zero, I mean zero. He put up a $500 deposit on the contract of sale, and when he goes to closing this morning at 11 a.m., he's going to get that $500 deposit returned to him. Why? Because of the type of financing he used, and we negotiated successfully that the seller would be paying all of his closing costs. And not only all of his closing costs, but in his particular case, all of his prepaids, including his deposit. So where normally you have to go and come up with money for an insurance policy at closing, Seller paid for his insurance. And there's something called prepaid taxes also that normally has to happen and go into escrow. The seller paid that also. So what am I trying to say here? I'm trying to say that if there's anybody listening, you don't hold back on buying a house because you don't have the cash. There are multiple ways to buy property with no cash. Now, there's people out there listening that are saying, well, yeah, but then my monthly payment's going to be really high. Well, I'm saying to you, no matter how much cash that you have access to, you ought to be using the minimum possible to buy your property. Why? Because for every $1,000 you put as an additional down payment on the property, probably at most you're going to be reducing your reducing your mortgage $6 to $7 per month per every $1,000 you put as a down payment. So would it make more sense to you to pay $6 a month more and have the $1,000 sitting in your bank account where you could spend it or invest it or save $6 per month? I think I know the answer, because remember something. Part of that $6 per month is principal pay down. So it's not all going down the tubes in the form of interest or taxes or insurance. A couple $100 a month of your monthly payment is reducing what you owe on the property. Folks, if you have a choice of putting money into a retirement account, 401k or IRA, or a choice of buying a property, be that an investment property or a property to live in, please choose real estate. You'll find it a better investment, and you'll find it a better place to put your money than into a paper asset. Folks, I'm going to read something to you a little bit later today that has to do with the hoax of a 401k. That's right, I said the hoax of a 401k. There's an author of a book that I just read called Killing Sacred Cows, and he talks about specifically reasons why you don't want to put money into a 401k. And I'll be paraphrasing and reading a portion of that before this segment, before this show is over. Now, going back to the basics. Interest rates, you probably heard, were declined 0.25%. And when I say declined 0.25%, I'm talking about Jerome Powell and the Federal Reserve lowered the interest rate by what are called 0.25 basis points, which for you and me means 0.25% interest. Now, that being said, the rates did fluctuate. The rates did go down for a short time, and now they're actually higher than at the moment they cut the interest rate. And you might say, well, why would that be? Well, prior to the Federal Reserve meeting, there was an anticipation that they were going to cut the rates. So many of the lenders dropped their interest rate, anticipating the rate would drop, and they dropped it prior to the actual cutting of the Federal Reserve rate. Now, what does that mean for you? It means you go out and you buy something and you pay what you need to pay by way of whatever the interest is, with the understanding that there's probably going to be several additional rate cuts in the next 6 months. So if it gets to the right number, magic number, you refinance your property. But what you can count on is that the prices continue to rise. They've been rising and they're going to continue to rise. So you can't win by waiting. Folks, when I'm not here doing this radio show, I'm an active practicing real estate broker. And I help people buy houses and I help people sell houses. So just like the story I told you in the beginning, where I help somebody buy with zero cash. If you're listening, you need to have a good real estate agent who's representing you. And folks, you don't pay the real estate agent who's representing you. In my particular case, I get paid by the seller of the property, and where other agents might require you to sign a document that says you're going to be paying for part of the real estate commission, I don't have you sign such a document, and I'm an excellent negotiator. I've done this for quite a few years, so reach out to me. My name is Rick Willis. Call me at 843-327-3017 or email me rick@rickwillis.com. Folks, we'll be right back after this break. Folks, you want to learn about real estate for retirement, and you want to build your retirement income around income-producing property. Also, if you have kids that you want to put through college, you don't want to save money for their college education. You want to invest in real estate where you can get a 20% plus return on your money safely instead of the small amount of money that you'll get by putting it into a savings account or a 529 plan. Folks, investing in real estate is a specialty of mine. Helping people buy and sell real estate is a specialty of mine. So call me 843-327-3017. Email me rwillisteam@gmail.com. It would be my pleasure to speak with you individually. I look forward to talking with you. Welcome back. Welcome back to Charleston to the second segment of today's Rick Willis Real Estate Show. Well, we were talking about buying a home in the first segment, and I told you a story about a gentleman that is going to be buying a home with no cash. And I didn't say little cash, I said no cash. We went out and we found a home where he could buy with zero down payment, put up a $500 deposit, which he's getting back at the closing today. Seller agreed to pay all the closing costs. Folks, if you're going to be buying any property at any price range, anywhere in the greater Charleston area, you want to make sure you have access to a very, very experienced buyer's agent who's good at negotiating. You see, for some of you, if you're going to be buying a property $400,000, $500,000, $600,000, you're talking about the difference of a $10,000 to $15,000 cash out of pocket difference just in the negotiating skills of the realtor that's representing you. Now, it used to be, going back in the day, that a real estate agent didn't have to have an agreement signed with a buyer before they go out and look at property. The world we're in today, you should have an agreement in place with your buyer's agent before you go out and look at property. And that agreement should either say that you're going to be paying all or part of the commission to the agent that's representing you, or you're not going to be paying it, or you're going to be paying a portion of. Anybody that I ever work with, I sign an agreement that says the buyer I represent never has to pay under any circumstances a real estate commission to myself. It always comes from the other broker or directly from the seller of the property. Having said that, I'm still negotiating for you, the buyer. So if you're thinking of buying, if you're listening and you have a relative that's looking to buy, a friend that's looking to buy, you want to make sure you refer them to the agent in this city that's got more experience than anybody else. Not only knowledge, but skill. You see, somebody can be licensed for quite a number of years, but if they're not active and they're not doing business out there every day, they may not be the most sharpest knife in the drawer. You want to make sure you work with somebody who's busy. You want to make sure you work with somebody who knows the market, knows how to negotiate, knows how to look at a home inspection report and coach you on what to ask for. In our particular case, the buyer that I represented that got the property no money down, not only did he get $7,000 towards his closing costs paid, when we did the inspection and the CL 100, there was some issues that showed up underneath the home. Well, we had the seller fix all the items underneath the home at their respective expense, in addition to getting the $7,000 credit. So please don't ever think that you just want to use a friend in the business or a relative when you're buying or selling real estate. You've got to be using somebody who's experienced, because that experience makes all the difference in a smooth transaction and either saving or making you money in the process. So I look forward to your reaching out to me or referring me to somebody that is looking to buy a property. Now, that being said, let's continue with some things that are important to know about buying. You can buy zero down payment, and anytime you put less than 20% down, you have what is called PMI, private mortgage insurance, or sometimes it's called MIP, mortgage insurance premium. But with 20% down payment, you don't have that extra little insurance payment on top of it. Folks, I would tell you, save your cash, put the minimum down payment, pay the private mortgage insurance. Why? Because you can get it back. You can eliminate the private mortgage insurance. So if you buy a home today and you have private mortgage insurance on the loan, which you would have if you're putting less than 20% down payment, at such point in time in the future, 2 years or more from the time you close, you can have that property reappraised, and if the combination of the principal pay down and the appreciation shows that you have a 20% or greater appreciation, 20% or greater equity in the property, you can eliminate that private mortgage insurance. You see, for those of you that have cash, you want to preserve your cash, and instead of trying to eliminate or lower the monthly payment, you use your cash proactively. You see, the difference between people that are smart with their money and people that don't really understand real estate is whether you play offense or defense. People that are wise with money play offense, meaning their goal is not to eliminate all debts. Their goal is to use their money to create more money instead of just working for money. So when I say proactively, if you had a choice of taking that extra money that you would be inclined to put as additional down payment to lower your monthly payment on what you're buying, or putting the minimum down payment and buying an investment property that you can use for cash flow and your future retirement, you'd be much better to have a home to live in plus an investment property that can also be your future retirement income than you would trying to just have a lower monthly payment and avoid private mortgage insurance. People that have a lot of money play offense. People that are just mediocre and middle class focus on not having debt and making sure they have as low a mortgage as possible. Folks, there's a guy named Warren Buffett. Have you heard the name? He's got a net worth of $150+ billion. He's the founder and former chief operating officer of a company called Berkshire Hathaway. Warren Buffett says the best value out there in the marketplace in the world of financing is a 30-year fixed rate mortgage. because you're paying that money back down the road with inflationary dollars that makes all those future dollars worth less than they are today. So if you have a choice of stretching your payments out on an appreciating asset, such as residential real estate, you want to stretch your payments out as long as possible. And if at some point in the future you intend to rent that property, remember it's not you making the mortgage payment, it's your tenant. So you want to make sure in your financing of real estate, you work up what is called a good faith estimate with the minimum down payment. Now, those of you that have access to a whole lot of cash, there's people out there today that are paying cash for properties. Shame on you. If you can buy that appreciating asset and you have a tax deduction that you can take as a result of buying that property, or you know you have an income that you can create from that property, you don't want to pay cash for a property. Again, you might, if you have a whole lot of cash, put that 20% down to avoid the private mortgage insurance, but then use the balance of your cash to pay cash for a property that would actually make your mortgage payment for you. But now you've got another appreciating asset that is working for you. Debt is not a bad thing if somebody else is paying for it. Folks, I'm going to tell you a quick story when I come back from a break about a doctor who called me this week, and I talked to him about not using his cash and buying some investment property. But we'll get that story when I come back from the break. Folks, you're listening to Rick Willis, and I want you to call me to pick my brain. Call me to talk about how I can help you buy, help you sell, or just plain answer any questions for you. 843-327-3017 is my phone number. Email me directly at rick@rickwillis.com. If you want to visit my website, rickwillis.com, read my bio, you'll see how experienced that I really am. Folks, we'll be right back after this break. Folks, you want to learn about real estate for retirement, and you want to build your retirement income around income-producing property. Also, if you have kids that you want to put through college, you don't want to save money for their college education. You want to invest in real estate where you can get a 20% plus return on your money safely instead of the small amount of money that you'll get by putting it into a savings account or a 529 plan. Folks, investing in real estate is a specialty of mine. Helping people buy and sell real estate is a specialty of mine. So call me 843-327-3017. Email me rwillisteam@gmail.com. It would be my pleasure to speak with you individually. I look forward to talking with you. Welcome back, Charleston. Welcome back to the third segment of today's Rick Willis Real Estate Show. Folks, I try to always let you know sometime during each show that if I don't sound the way I used to sound when you heard me years ago, or I sound a little punch drunk or slurring my words, I had a stroke 2 years ago that impacted the entire left side of my body, my leg, my arm, my wrist, my shoulder, my vocal cords, my speaking. So just to let you know, every now and then I have somebody that texts me or emails me and tells me I'm not pronouncing things well or I'm not speaking or enunciating clearly. Well, I'm letting you know why that might be. Now, having said all that, I'm focusing every day on improving and getting better, and I'm going through therapy, but I did not want to stop doing my show just because I don't sound the way I used to sound, and I hope you appreciate the fact that I'm trying to give you the best information that I have available to support you in any decisions you're going to make in buying or selling real estate. We were talking about financing real estate. We were talking about putting a minimum down payment. We were talking about using your cash to play proactively, play offense and not defense. And that's still good advice, and I consistently try to advise people of the same thing. Folks, if you're going to be buying any kind of real estate, you want to make sure you see the big picture and not just the monthly payment or not just the down payment. For some of you that itemize your tax returns, you should be taking into consideration the interest and the taxes that you pay, because that can be a tax deduction for you. For those of you that itemize or take a standard deduction, when you own investment grade real estate, you get to depreciate that respective property, and you have an additional tax deduction from what is called depreciation. So you need to see the big picture of real estate, not just look at a piece of it. So let's talk a little bit more about financing real estate. I mentioned to you a story about somebody who bought zero down, and I told you that when I came back from the break, I would tell you another story about a doctor who had contacted me this past week. I had someone call me, which I have happen a lot, about something that did not have to do with him looking to buy or sell real estate. But I got a call this week. Actually, it was an email that I returned that asked my opinion of putting an in-ground swimming pool in the backyard. Would I suggest doing that, and how would that impact the future resale value of the property? Well, I got this gentleman on the phone, and we started chatting. He lives in Mount Pleasant. I asked him, what is the price range of his home? Answer, somewhere north of $1 million and probably less than $2 million, somewhere in that $1 million to $2 million range. Then I asked him what price quotes he had for the swimming pool, and I was given a number that was approaching $200,000 for the pool that he wanted. And I told him a story about the fact that when I was raising my family in the state of Maryland, at the time I lived in Ellicott City, Maryland, I contracted for Anthony Pools, and I had the largest backyard swimming pool they had ever put in a yard in Maryland or Virginia, the area that they covered. I had a full lap lane, 75 feet long, in the shape of a P. So I had a lap lane for myself, and then there was a shallow end of the pool for my kids in the area that was the area of P. But I mentioned to him that I spent a whole lot of money relative to the value of my house on that swimming pool. Now, a number of years later, when the home was sold, I may not have gotten 100% of what I had put into it out of it, but I got enough out of it that it was certainly more than worthwhile the use of it while I had it. Folks, the purpose of money is not to hoard it and save it. The purpose of money is to utilize it for your self-serving best interest and the self-serving best interest of other people. So if you have a choice of letting your money sit somewhere and it has no utilitarian value, or having your money, in this case, provide you and your family for some enjoyment, by all means, enjoy it. You see, when you put money into a 401k or an IRA and you have it sit there for decades, you're not getting any utilitarian value out of it, and you don't even know where your money is. But what you do know is that it's like putting a under lock and key, that you can't get access to it, or you choose not to get access to it for those number of decades. I'm going to suggest to you that you start looking at money differently. and look at money from the point of view that the income that you can generate from the money that you have is far more important than letting it incrementally build in value. And then when you retire, you have a lump sum of money that you then have to decide what are you going to do with it. Because one of the things that wealthy people do that other people don't, wealthy people live off the interest, or they live off the income generated from their assets. They don't live off their assets. Folks, people that are accumulating money for the understanding that when they retire, they're going to spend down a portion of that money in their retirement, don't understand money. Cash flow is far more important than net worth. You'd rather have $4,000 a month coming in from your investments than you would $500,000. Why? Because it lasts an infinite number of years. No matter how long you live, if you have it in income producing real estate, you're going to be generating income. So that being said, make sure you invest your money wisely. So the doctor called me. I told you the story. I encouraged him to go ahead and put the swimming pool in. And I asked him, I said, are you intending to borrow money to pay for the pool or pay cash? His answer was pay cash. And then I asked him, I said, what is the mortgage balance of your home? And remember, I told you it was between $1 million and $2 million in value. He told me that his mortgage balance was 200 and some thousand. And I suggested to him that he get a home equity line of credit and use his line of credit to pay for the pool and get more of a line of credit than what the pool cost, and combine that with his liquid cash that he has available, and he could go out and pay cash for an investment property, and that income coming in from the investment property would more than make the monthly payment on his borrowed money for the swimming pool in his backyard. And I think I got the wheels turning, and long story short, I encouraged him and invited him to have a separate meeting with me, either in person or by phone, where I could pursue that farther, particularly with both he and his wife together, not just him. So folks, I want you to understand that borrowing money is what wealthy people do. People that don't understand money use their own money for things that could make them more money. Now, I'm not suggesting that you don't draw a you must draw a distinction when you invest your money. Are you putting it in things that appreciate and create income, or is it just a plain debt on something that doesn't appreciate and create income? A car payment would not be considered an investment. And a bunch of other things may not be considered an investment. But if it's going to create income or cause your asset to go up in value, then perhaps it could be advantageous for you to borrow the money rather than use your own money. Folks, you want to guard your cash and make sure that your cash is working for you. That's the big difference between rich people and people that could be rich, is the rich people know how to let their money make them money, where other people work hard and they save their money. You see, people that work hard and save their money are not the rich people, because rich people know how to have their money make them money. You want to focus on cash flow rather than building your net worth. Cash flow. And that's why you don't put money in a traditional 401k or IRA, because the mutual funds where your money is going to be invested are probably not providing you with any income. So you want to make sure you get trained on and educated on how to use your money to create income safely. In fact, there's a book that I'm reading right now called America's safest investment for income and growth. And it's written by a very experienced author who can tell you why exactly you want to have real estate as the foundation of all of your investments. All right, now, with all that said, let's talk some more about financing. So I mentioned to you earlier, I told you a story of an individual that bought a home with zero down payment. You didn't ask me, but I didn't tell you what kind of financing he used. He used what is called USDA financing, where when you get right outside of the immediate area of the center of town, when you go past Somerville, when you go past Ravenel, when you go beyond Mount Pleasant, when you go beyond Nexton and Cane Bay out towards Monk's Corner, you're in a geographical area where USDA, United States Department of Agriculture, allows you to buy a home for zero down payment. Now that's one way to buy no down payment. Another is VA financing, where if you're a veteran, have ever been in the military, reserves, or National Guard, you can buy using your VA. And if you've used your VA one time, you can use it again. And something you also might be able to do that most people don't know is you can have more than one VA loan at the same time. So I would encourage you to use the minimum amount of cash possible. FHA. Traditionally, FHA requires 3.5% down payment. But there's another way you can use FHA and actually get a second mortgage to borrow what would normally be the down payment of 3.5%. So you can even use FHA and buy with zero down payment. Now, for those of you age 62 or older, you can get a reverse mortgage, actually age 55 and older. When you're 55 and older, you can have a reverse mortgage whereby you don't have any monthly payments that you're required to make of principal and interest. So most people reject a reverse mortgage because they don't understand it. The property stays in your name. You're not giving it to the government. The equity is all yours. It's just that the monthly payment is optional. You don't have to make a monthly payment of principal and interest. And your taxes and insurance can be paid separately because there is no required mortgage payment. Now, a reverse mortgage, when you don't have to make a monthly payment. Some of you right now have a lot of equity in your property. If you currently have a low interest rate first mortgage, you don't have to pay that off. You can get a second mortgage, reverse mortgage, where you also make no monthly payment, but you keep your first mortgage in place. Now, if you could borrow several $100,000 on the equity in your home, and you could go out and pay cash for an income producing property, and you didn't have to make a monthly payment on your own property, doesn't that sound like a smart thing to do? Now you have another appreciating asset. You have income that you wouldn't have otherwise, and that lump sum that you get is not taxed because it's your money. You have a tax deduction now on the property that you just bought with your reverse mortgage. Property stays in your name. When you pass away, it goes to your spouse. When both of you pass away, should you be married, it goes to your estate. Your estate gets the benefit of all the equity. And remember, even though you pulled some cash out of the property, you bought another property with it. Therefore, you haven't lost any equity, but you now have two appreciating assets, not just one. Folks, you want to make sure you reach out to me, have a private consultation with me, because I can show you how to use your assets to create income. And I can be very creative, and I can tell you some things that you probably can do with your assets that you don't even know you can do. You don't want to believe and just listen to a financial advisor, because those financial advisors only are going to consult with you about paper assets, not tangible assets. Folks, call me directly, Rick Willis, 843-327-3017, or email me, rick@rickwillis.com. Folks, I look forward to hearing from you, and we'll be right back after this break. Folks, you want to learn about real estate for retirement, and you want to build your retirement income around income-producing property. Also, if you have kids that you want to put through college, you don't want to save money for their college education. You want to invest in real estate where you can get a 20% plus return on your money safely instead of the small amount of money that you'll get by putting it into a savings account or a 529 plan. Folks, investing in real estate is a specialty of mine. Helping people buy and sell real estate is a specialty of mine. So call me, 843-327-3017. Email me, rwillisteam@gmail.com. It would be my pleasure to speak with you individually. I look forward to talking with you. Welcome back. Welcome back to the final segment of today's Rick Willis Real Estate Show. Well, folks, we've been on a journey on this show. We've been talking about buying something. And for those of you parents and grandparents that are listening, if you've got sons or daughters or grandkids that should be owning something instead of renting something, find a way to make a little partnership with them where you either provide some of the cash or you provide some of the income to help them qualify for a loan and get them into a property. And instead of them being a roommate with somebody else, let your son, daughter, or grandchild get roommates and have that be an investment. You see, there's many a person out there that rents a property by the room. So it might be that where a property would rent on a monthly basis for $1,800 a month, that same property rented on a 3-bedroom unit could rent for $800 per room. And now you have a bona fide cash flowing investment that you own a part of and your kids or your grandkids own a part of. Maybe you're taking the tax deduction from it, and they've got a place to live, with the understanding that at a certain point in time you might sell the property, or they can buy the property from you, or you buy it from them, and you have a bona fide long-term retirement plan for somebody. But having said all that, you want to make sure that you're in the real estate market. Even though the interest rates are significantly higher than they were 2 years ago, the right place to have your money is still real estate. When you combine the factors that make up a good investment, you cannot beat real estate as a place to have your money. Now, when I talk about return on investment, it's critical that you understand that even if you rent real estate, that you don't ever have to deal with a tenant. I'm sitting currently close to somebody who expressed concern about not wanting to deal with people that are tenants in a property. Some of you listening may be feeling the same way. Well, you know what? You don't have to ever deal with a tenant to own investment property. As a matter of fact, about 50% of the people that I work with that buy an income-producing property do not manage the property themselves. They want the economic benefits of owning income-producing real estate. They don't want to even think of the hassle of trying to handle renting a property or dealing with collecting rent. Well, folks, you don't have to do that. You can pay somebody else to do that. Please understand that if you have money in a retirement account, somebody's getting paid a management fee. And in addition to managing the actual investment, there's several layers of fees that you end up paying. The actual company that you have your money with gets paid a percentage called funds under management. And it's their goal to make sure you keep your money with them in a paper asset, and they don't even tell you, even if they know about income producing real estate, they're never going to tell you that. It may require you to change custodians of your retirement account, and then you can have your money invested in income producing real estate. Folks, the book that I'm reading called Killing Sacred Cows by Gordon Gundaker, an excellent book. And I encourage you to buy it, Killing Sacred Cows. He has a whole chapter dealing with why the 401k is a hoax and how you can do so much better than having your money in any formal retirement account. You want to have your money in a place where it's creating income. Now, what you already know about a retirement account, because it's based in the stock market, is there's going to be a correction. And a correction occurs when there's a swing of about 10% in its value. Folks, while the market is up, you want to remove your money from your 401k, or without removing it, you can transfer it to a self-directed 401k, a self-directed IRA, and invest those same dollars in real estate. Now you can get comfortably and easily a 20 to 30% annual return on income producing real estate. And if you look at the averages for a retirement account, you're going to find in the best case scenario, averaging long term, it's going to be 8 to 12% in the best case scenario. And in the average scenario, it's going to be 5 to 8% annual growth of your money. The problem is you don't have any income coming in. You're basing it solely on the value of what you're investing in going up in value. Now, I mentioned the name earlier, Warren Buffett. Warren Buffett, net worth $150 billion. He's the gentleman that started and is the founder of Berkshire Hathaway. They currently have $325 billion of money sitting in banks looking for a place for him to invest his money. Now, he doesn't invest in real estate, he buys companies, and they're looking for a company to buy. But he only buys a company that has existing cash flow, or one that he can increase the cash flow. Warren Buffett says the average person who talks about investing is not really investing at all. They're speculating with their money. Now, people that don't know what to do with their money keep their money in banks. They save money. People that risk money and think they're investing speculate in Bitcoin. They speculate in stocks, mutual funds, ETFs. They speculate in gold. These are things that have to go up in value and then be resold at a profit. Warren Buffett says the definition of an investment is putting your money in a place that never has to be, where what you put your money in never has to be sold, and you're creating income while you own the asset, and it never needs to be sold for you to make a profit. Warren Buffett, decades ago, bought millions of shares of Coca-Cola, and he says he's never going to sell it. Folks, that's how you want to think about real estate. You want to think of buying some property that creates income while you own it, gives you a tax deduction while you own it, and you never have to sell it. That one day your tenants will have it all paid for. And if you're of an age where you're not going to live that long to have the tenants pay for it, then Perhaps you use some other assets that you have to pay it. I know people right now that are building a net worth by buying income property with mortgages, and their intention is that when they retire, they're going to sell half of their properties and pay off the other half with the equity from the properties they're buying. You never pay for a property with your own assets if a tenant can pay it, or if through appreciation you can sell part of the asset and pay for it. Folks, did you know that you can own real estate, have it go up in value, sell it, make a profit, and as long as you reinvest those proceeds according to the IRS, you'll pay no tax on your gain and no recapture tax on your depreciation you've taken. Folks, you need to understand investment grade real estate. And I'm just the guy to help you with that. Folks, if you're thinking of buying or selling or investing in anything relating to real estate, you want to pick my brain, which you can do free of charge. You can do so by way of telephone. We can be on a Zoom call. We can meet in person. Call me directly, Rick Willis, 843-327-3017, or email me, rick@rickwillis.com. Folks, I look forward to your call. I look forward to your text. I look forward to your meeting. Please allow yourself to be supported and get access to information that you don't have now about your own personal financial situation. Reach out to me. It's a pleasure for me to speak with you. Folks, I appreciate you listening. Have a great weekend, and I look forward to your contacting me.